and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I'll be discussing the 2011 action come more psychological drama, if you like, movie Drive, starring Ryan Gosling and as directed by Nicholas Winding Refn? It is actually based on the 2005 novel of the same name by James Sallis. So, now, before I get started with my review, I just wanted to give a big shout out to Emiliano Goosebumps, who actually requested this review quite some time ago, to be honest. Emiliano Goosebumps is another YouTuber, like myself, who often comments on my videos. You might have seen him in some of them below. And so if you do have some time to check out his channel, please do, absolutely. I will leave a link to his channel down below in the description. And I will also link an Emiliano Goosebumps video to the end of this episode. So, thank you very much for the request. I hope you enjoy the review. So, the movie is centered around the driver, a character as played by Gosling. We never get to know him as anything else. I think the kid was used a couple of times, but that's about it. Who simply lives for driving. It's a passion. It's his calling, I believe. By day, he is a movie kind of stuntman and a car mechanic. By night, moonlighting as a getaway driver. A very calculating and methodical character. You just know that there's more to him than meets the eye right from the start of the film, with a very kind of real intimate insight into his style and his train of thought in a crisis. He does befriend his next door neighbour, Irene, as played by Carey Mulligan, and her young son, Benico, as played by Caden Leos, and it kind of even starts to form the beginnings of a romantic connection with Irene. However, Irene's husband, Standard Gabriel, as played by Oscar Isaac, returns having recently been released from jail. But it turns out he is in debt for protection whilst he was incarcerated and has been asked to rob a pawn shop in payback for that protection. He refuses at first, deliberately. He wants to go straight, but that does now then put his family in grave danger. Having formed a strong bond with Irene and Benico and really wanting to ensure that no danger comes to them, the driver agrees to set up the job with Standard and assist. However, everything goes awry and soon he finds himself in the middle of something much larger, which kind of affects everybody he has come to care about. So, I would admit, first and foremost, that this movie didn't speak to me previously. I hadn't seen it prior to watching it for this review, and it wasn't really one of my first choices at all. But you know what? I was completely taken away by its kind of real gritty cinematography and real edgy story. Something I really just wasn't expecting at all. Now, it's not a film that's big on action or outrageous special effects. It is not like other kind of driver-based movies, kind of such as those in the Transporter or the Fast and the Furious franchises, for instance. This movie is more of a deep character study and examines in fine detail the motivations for the driver's actions as it progresses, and as to how and why he then ends up fighting for the freedom of the family he has become so attached to. At the start of the movie, we do get some very tense driving scenes introducing us directly to that main character. Although I would say that for a movie called Drive, there isn't all that much of the character driving when I actually think about it, not past the first bit. The film is actually more about the character as a driver than just simply bombarding us with kind of big stunts and long-winded and extended car chases. There are a few, but they are kind of pretty downplayed. Instead, this film relies heavily on its visual style and representation of the characters to kind of offer us a real insight into their world, especially during those first few scenes. In fact, at least for about 20 minutes, I would say, or so, there is hardly a word spoken by any of the main characters. Because of the way the film is kind of set up, that way the conversation can feel a little awkward at times, I found. To be fair, it didn't always feel natural. And this, for me, was fairly noticeable. Again, especially during the first half of the movie. But it is still a very powerful movie in that sense. And the awkwardness isn't all that distracting, to be fair. It's just noticeable. The visual style and execution of the movie is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And it did remind me very much of the style used in the early episodes of the TV series Miami Vice, and when it was quite dark. And indeed, especially the 2006 movie of the same name. It has some stunning shots of Los Angeles at night, in where the movie is based, but very dark. So it's kind of giving the movie a real kind of broody, very moody kind of feel. Dark, but tantalizingly so. The visuals in the movie kind of follow the driver very intimately right from the start, with a very unique perspective on the drive itself. Not from the car's perspective, but from the driver's. From angles actually within the car itself, which, if I'm honest, did actually make it quite intense at times. It was certainly a unique viewing experience, I would say, and certainly made you feel up close and personal with this character. The whole cinematographic experience, in fact, was edgy, gritty even, but I thought it had an almost kind of retro, potentially 80s, come early 90s, kind of vibe to its style. Its use of classic and more downplayed cars aided this feeling, as did the film's choice of music. Not the score, but its choice of tracks kind of provided for a more quirky, offbeat electro feel. The film's score, as composed by Cliff Martinez, an ex-Red Hot Chili Pepper, I do believe, and based on original themes and music by Johnny Jewel of Desire and The Chromatics, was edgy in itself and aided very well in bringing the tension really playing out on screen to the viewer. It really did, and aided in that kind of distinct retro feel that I thought the film certainly had. There wasn't a true distinctive theme, but it was interesting nonetheless. It really was. The character of the driver was certainly interesting and intriguing. It was a really intriguing take on the hero complex. A person with pretty much a singular purpose in life to drive, who obviously has a complicated history. We never do find out anything about the character's history. It's presented really almost like they simply appeared 5 or 6 years ago, discovered by his mechanic friend, mentor and boss, Shannon, as played by Bryan Cranston. This kind of sets up a real mysterious element to the movie, and you're never really sure where this character is going to go or going to do next. In some respects, he's almost emotionless. Interestingly, as alluded to earlier, the character is developed throughout the first part of the film almost in silence. It's almost the lack of emotion seen here that actually draws you in and kind of really makes you bond with the character. There's just really something that makes you sympathise with him and his story. The movie is, admittedly, a very slow burn. It does take time for it to actually rev up, so to speak. But establishing each of the characters' intent and frame of mind is key. As insinuated, this is not an out-and-out action film. The first half is certainly more of a deep kind of psychological drama, leading up to a finale which actually gets quite tense, graphic, and very gruesome. Let's just say that the driver certainly has a dark side. His mission to keep Irene and Beneko safe is relentless, which at times actually gets quite disturbing. What was actually quite refreshing, however, to see for a hero, if you like, was that he was not infallible or indestructible. Even though, for the most part, the character of the driver does remain somewhat unemotional, as he has to start taking action against those that seek to cause him and those around him harm, you can see that he is physically shaking, shook up by what he has to do. You really do get to see the depth of his character just through his facial expressions, and overall, I would say absolutely excellently played by Gosling. It's a very raw and a very heartfelt performance for a very raw and unyielding character. Overall, the whole style and execution of the film is brilliantly unforgiving, and certainly somewhat of a unique cinema experience, I thought. With no hardcore action or massive chase sequences, it's certainly a different kind of driver-focused film, which, by the end, the sheer power of the characters towards the end had my heart racing. It is one of those rare occasions where what I felt during the movie was pretty much as described and intended by the director following the research I did for this review. In this, it is excellently crafted and really well told, and a very gripping story. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. We have loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk. We'd definitely love to have you back. Most of all, though, we hope you've enjoyed yourself. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Thank you very much, and yes, goodbye.